Now from Capitol Hill is New Jersey Congressman Leonard Lance. Congressman, you've had no qualms speaking out against and going against your party, Speaker Ryan, the president, on this one. What is it that you object to in the American Health Care Act in its current form?
Thank you for having me, Eric. I do not think that the bill will lower premiums, and I think we need a system that does lower premiums and significantly repairs Obamacare, and that needs repair. I don't think this bill does it. I would prefer to see a bill that permits the purchase of policies across state lines, tort reform, and I hope that we can work in that regard, and we have to work in a bipartisan capacity.
Senator Rand Paul, in fact, had railed against this, calling it Obamacare light. So is it safe to assume that you think he was right in that assessment?
I certainly think that we in the House should take into consideration the views of members of the United States Senate, and we should not be passing legislation that has no chance of passing in the Senate of the United States. Senator Paul has been a critic. There have been other critics as well. And I think it's the responsibility of our leadership to work with the leadership in the Senate to make sure that there is legislation that can pass both houses and then be signed into law by President Trump.
In fact, the president issued an ultimatum to get this passed. He went as far as tweeting, quote, "The irony is that the Freedom Caucus, which is very pro-life and against Planned Parenthood, allows Planned Parenthood to continue if they stop this plan." So he's essentially saying vote against the plan is like voting for Planned Parenthood. Do you agree with that?
I think that we have to work in a bipartisan capacity, and I commend President Trump for being involved. He has said that he wants to move to other issues, such as tax reform, and I would hope that we can work on this issue in the ways I have suggested, and I don't think that this bill does that.
How about the repeal of Obamacare's essential requirements that insurers cover and provide 10 services, everything from maternity to mental health care? Have you heard specifically from your constituents on this particular issue?
This is a late addition to the bill, and I oppose that late addition, and certainly my constituents are concerned about that. There are certain essential services that should be contained in insurance policies, and those would include visits to the doctor and visits to hospitals. I think that those provisions should remain in the law.
Do you fear, as many people will lose health coverage under the new act, as some critics have projected?
The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, suggests that over 10 years there might be 24 million Americans who would lose coverage. I think that might be too high, given the fact that the CBO was unable to score, for example, what I favor, purchase of policies across state lines. That's not the CBO's fault, Eric. It can only score the legislation before it. But I do think that we have to do a better job, and certainly the CBO scoring was influential in my decision not to support the bill.
Finally, and you said multiple times already that you feel there needs to be bipartisan agreement on this one. Do you feel that Republicans rushed this bill through and it just wasn't ready for prime time?
I think that we should always take our time and be deliberate. The Democrats obviously voted for Obamacare. There was no Republican support for that. And my observation over the course of American history is in programs like this, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, it is much better when the two parties can come together, as was the case in 1935 with Social Security and as was the case in 1965 with Medicare and Medicaid. The past is the past. Obamacare needs fundamental revision. The exchanges are not doing well. In 1/3 of the counties in this country, there is only one insurer, and so there has to be a lot of work done. And I hope the Democrats, Eric, will come to the table to work with us on this important issue.
Congressman Leonard Lance joining us from Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Eric.